everyone, and welcome to our Inclusion and Wellbeing Forum for February. And today we are joined by the wonderful Meeta Gupta from Moola. And Meeta is going to speak to us all about empowering women and men in terms of financial awareness, budgeting. And it's an area that I think very many of us in education, we really don't have a very good educational background in terms of financial management and well-being. As always, we're recording the session. Our recording will be posted on our YouTube channel, that's Inclusion, where all of our monthly recordings can be accessed. We have dozens of videos. We invite everybody to participate. We welcome providers and service providers. However, this is a free to attend forum, so we don't promote any specific services or products. If you wish to ask questions, please feel free to do so. I will be monitoring the chat. And if you wish to speak about any individual challenges or concerns, you may, but please do not name any organizations, schools, or individuals by name. We offer advice and guidance on education and this month on financial well-being, but we always ask that you yourself consult with either your own personal leadership in your schools or with your financial advisors if you are making any major decisions. So that there's a disclaimer that this is advice and guidance, but it is not specifically that you must do this. It's ideas and concepts. So without further ado, I will hand over to the wonderful Meeta, and thank you so much for joining us this month. And let's begin.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Catherine, for this wonderful opportunity to talk to your community. And I'm super excited to bring this topic, a topic really close to my heart, financial well-being. And I think today's topic, we are going to be talking for about an hour, and would love for all of you to participate. And thank you, Catherine, for moderating the chat, because I cannot see the chat as of now. So if there are any questions there, I would invite everyone to, post in their questions on the chat, or if you want to interact, then, probably just raise your hand or something and we can get you to speak. So yeah, let's begin. Today's topic is financial well-being, and I am going to give you a few tips and tools to optimize your financial planning and budgeting. And does this excite you? If you can put in the chat box if this is a topic which excites you, or do you find it intimidating, boring? Any thoughts when it comes to these kind of topics? I think the sound is not good. Can you?
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you. There's a little bit of feedback, but it's very minimal. It's fine.
Okay. So fair enough. So I believe that most people can hear me, and if someone can't, please can you check on your own microphones? Maybe there's a problem there. And let me know, how do you feel about this topic in the chat box? Does this topic seem interesting, boring, intimidating? Does it make you anxious? What are your thoughts? Very quickly, if I can get some thoughts before we begin. Anyone?
Sometimes our participants are a little shy, Meeta. So
no worries. So let's begin. Like we all know, financial planning and discipline is the key to one's financial freedom. It is something which we all want to be financially free. We want to be financially empowered, and financial planning and discipline is the key to do that. Of course, financial security empowers not only ourselves in terms of our career, it also empowers us for our lifestyle and also gives us a peace of mind. So it's extremely, extremely important for all of us to have financial security and feel financially empowered. Let's do a reality check, a very quick. Why did the screen not turn? Yeah. Okay. So let's do a reality check. Women averagely earn about 23% less than men. They also experience more career interruptions due to unpaid caregiving responsibilities. Women also live longer than men and accumulate lesser lifetime wealth as compared to men. They also receive about 26% lesser retirement income than men. And women tend to have we know that mostly women tend to have lower financial literacy rates as compared to men. And because of lower financial literacy rates, they are more vulnerable. They find it more difficult to make ends meet. They're more likely to be not capable or unable to cope with any financial shock that comes their way. And they're 5 times more likely to spend a larger amount of time per week on issues related to personal finances because of the low financial literacy that women in general have. So, yes, for women, financial independence is a matter of necessity. I don't think it's a choice anymore. It is something which is a life skill which all of us as women need to have. And so, let us today use this opportunity to turn our challenges into opportunities. Women can excel, and they do excel at setting and achieving goals with the right support. Financial literacy provides the confidence to tackle any financial challenge. And you'll agree to that, that the moment we feel financially literate, it gives us the confidence to be able to handle any financial challenge. And financial planning is a dynamic roadmap to this to secure your future. That means if you plan your financials, it is something which is continuously, it gives you a roadmap which will then help you secure your future. And it's extremely important to tailor make your plans. And if you tailor make your plans, it will help you overcome your any setbacks that you may have, and it will give you confidence. And at Moola, we actually help you do that. We not only empower you with financial literacy, but support you in your investment journey so that you can confidently achieve your life goals. So today, like I said, we are going to I am going to share some tips and tools, and in the next 1 hour, I will be talking about 10 tips and tools to optimize your financial planning and budgeting. So I would love for all of you, if you wish to, please have a pen and paper. And of course, you can take screenshots or use your pen and paper. And I'm sure like Catherine said, this is also going to be available on YouTube. So you can obviously access it any point in time. So a little bit about me. I'm Meeta Gupta. I have over 30 years of experience in the field of finance. I have worked with banks and I've worked with corporates. And in July of 2020, I started my passion venture, which is called Moola for Women, which is a financial literacy and empowerment platform. I have empowered over 4,000 global women through my programs and courses. And we have a website called Moola for Women and an Instagram handle called Moola for Women. And love for all of you to follow us there and have a look at what we do. So the first tip to financial planning is save, save, save. What do I mean? I'd love for the audience to be interactive and ask questions, because that keeps the energy flow. And it's extremely important for me as a person who's presenting to see the energy in the room, and it'll really be nice if I can get your participation. So yes, the first tip is save, save, save. The only way to begin your wealth creation journey is to start saving, unless you're expecting to have an inheritance, or you're expecting to win a lottery, or you're expecting to do a heist. So if you're doing any of those, then of course you don't need to save. But if none of these are happening for you, then the only way to build your wealth is to save. And what does savings mean? Savings is your income less your expenses. It's that simple. So to increase your savings, what you need to do, you need to increase your income, and you need to reduce your expenses. That's it. So increase your income, reduce your expenses, or do both, and your savings will go up. Right? And so I'm sure you all have heard this saying which says every drop fills the ocean. And so controlling expenses is a very, very important part of saving. Would any of you want to unmute yourselves and give some thoughts on how do you think you can control your expenses? Anyone wants to unmute themselves or put in the chat? What do you think you can do to control expenses from your end? And do you think that every drop does fill the ocean? Any thoughts around that? And Catherine, if somebody has some comments, then please feel free to let me know. Otherwise, I shall continue. So, yeah.
Evelise has her hand up. Would you like to contribute, Evelise? We can't hear you. Are we there? Wonder.
Can't.
Oh, can't unmute. Can't unmute. Oh, let me just see where is Evelise. And if I can. Oh, it won't let me unmute her. How strange.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know why that is. Can you try? Because I've made you co-host.
I am not so sure because I have only one screen.
Okay, Evelise, she's typing in the chat and she's saying we need to stop Starbucks coffees, which I think very much these
Then
unscheduled expenses.
no, even I am not allowed to unmute you. So I guess the best thing to, yes, you're absolutely right. Reducing Starbucks coffees is very, very important too. One of the big ways that you can control expenses. And of course, there are many more. If I could go on, I mean, even things like small things like switching off your electricity, if not needed, don't go about doing wasteful expenditures or any of those kind of things. Oh, I love to buy clothes. I love to buy things. And then there are many, many things which we do to kind of leak our bucket. And I always say that like every drop fills the ocean, every leak can empty it too. And every expense that you do which is not really needed and warranted then is leaking your expenses, leaking your income and preventing you from saving. And so save at least 20% of whatever money you earn or receive. That is, if I can say, a golden rule that if you can begin to save from the moment you get your salary or you get any form of income or money, please save at least 20% of what you earn or you receive. And I call it the Moola mantra: save first and spend later. What a lot of us land up doing is that we get our salary, we spend it, and whatever is left, we then think, okay, this is left, let's save. And then we kind of use it up and money doesn't get left, and we'll have things like, oh, I don't know where my money went. I don't know. I mean, I'm not such a spendthrift, but I don't really know where my money went. So the best thing to do is to start saving first. So the moment your salary comes, 20% of it should go into a separate account where you then don't touch that, and it goes towards your investments and saving. And that is something, if you consistently do in a disciplined manner, you will see your savings increase. And the next thing is, as you earn more, save more. We all love to, as our income increases, we want a better iPhone, a better car, a better home, a better this, more clothes. Now let's get a Louis Vuitton bag and let's get sunglasses. And we have all sorts of expenditures which start coming to us as we increase our income. But the mantra is to, as you earn more, you save more. Like I've said before, minimize frivolous spending or unplanned spending and think before you spend. Ask yourself the question, is this a need or is it a temporary urge? And I often tell my daughter, who's 27 now, and she loves to shop, and I'll tell her that she loves to do online shopping, and one of the things which I generally give her is that, why don't you put it in the cart, and 2 days later or 3 days later, if you still think it's important, then go and spend on it. And most of the time, these are all temporary urges that we have of just getting excited and buying something. And all of this is leaking our buckets. So the first step to creation of wealth is saving. And the more you save and the faster you save, the faster your wealth accumulates. Any thoughts, any questions on that, or should we continue? Anyone would want to give any thoughts, examples, anything of I think the only way it can work probably is to put in the chat, which...
Yeah, no, nothing at the moment.
So let's continue. The next tip that I would want to give all of you is protect your income. What if you couldn't work tomorrow? Right? There could be various reasons that you may not have a job, you could lose a job, or there could be some unforeseen circumstance because maybe which life throws at you and you couldn't work tomorrow. What would you do? So our income is the backbone of our lifestyle and our plans. You'll agree with me, right? That we need to have a steady income to continue to have our lifestyle and whatever we want to plan for ourselves. And there are no state safety nets that are available in UAE. And so insurance is essential. It's extremely important to get yourself insured. That is to protect your income and your family from financial vulnerability. So, and way back in your home countries, wherever you are, there might be certain safety nets which are available to you in case your income for some reason is not there. But at least in UAE, there are no such safety nets. And so it's extremely important to have an insurance cover in place. And how much and what kind of insurance? So cover 20 times of your annual income. As a thumb rule, you should be able to cover expenses like your mortgages, education, and living costs so that you can ensure financial security for your family in your absence. So, God forbid something happens to you and you are not able to earn income, or you're not there for, God forbid something happens to you, then that life cover will protect you and your family from and help them take care of their expenses when you are not there for them. And the life cover also addresses some overlooked costs like repatriation. We are all in a different land. We're not in our homeland. We're all, we are all expats and people out of our home countries here, and we may have debts. So all these things are also taken care of when you take a life cover. How many of you have a life cover? In the chat box, if you can put how many people have a life cover as of now. Put a me or a not me. Okay. So some of you do, right? And
Yeah.
for others who do not have it, it's extremely important to please cover your expense. I mean, have a income cover. If you can mute yourself, thank you. Yeah. So whoever does not have a life cover, and if you have dependents, if you have children, if you have dependent parents, if you are still young, and if you have responsibilities, then it's extremely important for you to take a life cover to protect your income and to protect your family against unforeseen circumstances. The third, so that's tip number 2. Tip number 3 is increase your income. Like I just said, savings is income minus expenses. So it's extremely important for us to think about increasing our income. Most people are satisfied with the job that they do, and they're like, oh, we're in a comfortable space and we're earning, which is fair enough. But how about thinking of increasing your income by doing a side hustle? You may want to do blogging, YouTube, have a YouTube channel, you want to be a fitness instructor. And in today's day and age, it is so easy to kind of find a side hustle with your work. And I actually read it somewhere, a person who said that 9 to 5 is my office time and 5 to 9 it's my time. So all of us love to come home and party and have fun and do whatever, be with our family. But if we could allocate some part of our evenings or the me time that we have towards creating some more income for ourselves, then we can get wealthier faster, because the more you earn, the more you can save. Does anyone pursue their passion other than working on their job or having a salary? Is anyone trying to earn some kind of a side income? Yes or no in the chat box. And what are your thoughts around it? So use your passion to increase your side income. There is nothing bad, I mean, for a lot of people, and especially in a few cultures, it is said that, oh, women should not think about money and women should not think about all the time, money should not be in their mind. And I mean, but believe you me, it's okay. It's empowering. I mean, pursue your passion. And if you can convert your passion by putting the right skills and competencies and make it your profession or make it a side hustle, then why not? Tomorrow, it also protects you. Remember, we also said protecting your income. Tomorrow, God forbid, you don't have a job, you lose your job, you at least have some money coming for you. So very important to think about that it is a good idea to increase your income. And of course, talk about increases, raises. Don't be passive about just sitting in a job, and say that how could I increase my skills and competencies to increase my income, right? The fourth. Any questions until now? Anyone?
No, we're pretty quiet.
Okay, perfect. So I believe if everyone's quiet, I think either they're very bored or or they have nothing to ask. So either of the ways, if you're bored, please mention that. But yes, if you have no question to ask, then that's absolutely fine. The fourth tip that I would want all of you to take from today is create an emergency fund. How many of you have an emergency fund? Again, let me ask that question. Do you have an emergency fund? Yes, no, maybe. In the chat.
Yes, Andrea, thank you for answering.
Thank you.
And Shang, thank you for answering. Yes. Oh,
Okay.
oh no, she's saying not me.
Okay.
Evelise, yes.
Okay, so some of you do and some
Yeah.
of you don't. So let's understand what is an emergency fund and why must we have it. So if an emergency can happen at any time, right? We could lose our job, something untoward can happen to us, a medical emergency, anything can happen to us, right? Like I also said, a loss of your job. And an emergency doesn't tell you when it comes. And when an emergency comes, you need to have money because you still have to pay your mortgage, you have to still pay your rent, you have to still pay for your child's education, you still have to pay for your groceries. So all those expenses you continue to have even if you do not have a source of income or there is some problem that happens. And so it is extremely important to start creating an emergency fund with at least 3 months of essential expenses. And like I said, essential expenses are things like your mortgage, your rent, your EMIs, your school, kids' education, your groceries, utilities, all of those expenses. At least 3 months worth of essential expenses should be kept aside. Money worth of that much amount should be kept aside as an emergency fund. And gradually, please extend this emergency fund from 3 months to 6 months and then to 1 to 2 years. It is very, very, very important. A lot of people I meet also send a lot of money to their families back home and do not keep any money for themselves in this country. They say, oh, we're saving at home, we're giving it to our family, but the emergency can happen here. You need to have some income, some amount of money, some amount of funds stashed here, which can be withdrawn and which are accessible immediately, right? You can't say that I have an emergency, I cannot liquidate my funds because they're lying here in so and so place, so it'll come to me in 3 days, 4 days. If it's an emergency, you need money instantly. So your funds need to be in a safe place and they need to be liquid. What liquid means that you should be able to convert whatever your wherever your money is back into cash so that you can have access to it and you can spend it for what you need to spend it on. Emergency funds help us deal with unexpected costs and emergencies. Think about your car breaking down. I mean, it doesn't have to be something absolutely drastic as some kind of a illness or some kind of a accident and all. It can be something as small as even a sudden breakdown of a car. If you don't have money for taking care of expenses which you haven't thought of or budgeted for and which are more than what your normal income is or what you normally would have in your account, how will you take care of it? So extremely important for all of us to create an emergency fund. Right? For all of you who do not have an emergency fund, please take it on priority to start building an emergency fund for at least 3 months to begin with of essential expenses and then go on to build it for 6 months and up to 1 to 2 years. Point number 4. Is that the fourth one, or have I missed one? Oh, so maybe I have 11 points. This is my so that's sorry on that one. So yes, the next point is critical illness insurance. Okay, the fifth point, if I may say so, is critical illness insurance beyond health coverage. So in UAE, we all have to necessarily have a health insurance in place, and that is non-negotiable if you are in this country. But what is not covered in health insurance in a lot of places is your critical illness insurance, which means that it covers income loss during recovery from serious illnesses. And we know that in today's day and age, God forbid, anyone could land up with a problem or a critical illness at any point in time. And also, critical illnesses really require expensive treatments, right? And it having some kind of a coverage which takes care of your treatment, of your expenses, will reduce your stress. And also remember that in UAE, we do not have any disability support. And so it is extremely important that we have some critical illness insurance, which we create, because without that, it leaves again a family in a vulnerable position. Right? So how many of you have a critical illness insurance, or have you checked whether your health insurance covers critical illness or not? If you at least check your health covers, even if it's with your organization, you may need to leave an organization, right? Suppose, God forbid, something happens to you, you need to do treatment. At that time, you may need to even give up your jobs. Do you have something? So critical illness insurance ideally should be out of your own insurance, and may not be really tagged to the insurance that your employer is providing, because sometimes layoffs happen and you may want to leave your job when critical illness happens. And remember, you will never get a cover if you are diagnosed with a critical illness. It has to be when you are fine, when you're fit and fine. Only then insurance companies give you covers. They do not provide you covers after you've been diagnosed a problem. So it's extremely important for the welfare of our family and for creating a safety net for them that we should have a critical illness insurance, right?
And Andrea is saying she's not sure.
Yes.
That she'd have to check, but I guess if you're not sure, you don't have it because it costs extra and you have to opt in. She's also asking if we can provide recommendations for life and illness coverage. If you go to any of the websites like Insurance Market or Compare the Market, any of those, Policy Bazaar, they will give you all the options that you have for your age category and for your wage category as well. So it's useful.
Yes, absolutely, Catherine. You're bang on that one. Yes, and it is extremely important that we take these insurances very, very seriously, right? Do not just brush it under the carpet, say that, oh, today your life is hunky-dory, everything's going good, so we don't need it. We all must have it, especially if you have dependents, if you are, if you have people who, and especially if you have people who you still need to take care of their education, you need to take care of their safety, you need to take care of their health and many other things. And then of course, definitely you need to have, and of course for yourself too. So do have insurance covers in place. The next tip, and it's tip number 6. So I'm sorry for the wrong numbering here, but yes, this is tip number 6. Set your financial goals now. My question to all of you people here is, do you have a financial goal? Do you have short-term, medium-term, and long-term goals? Yes or no? Or are they somewhere in your head and you've never put it down on paper? Yeah, I think I know what my goals are, but I've never put it down on paper. My question is, do you really have short-term? Anjali says no. Yes, thank you, Anjali, for that. Remember that, a lot of us, and thank you for, even acknowledging that you do not have goals, because that's a fact. a lot of us just live life like driftwood. We just continue to drift and we keep moving and we keep, you kind of existing in life because all is going well, and we kind of just keep moving in one direction without having goals. So it is extremely important for us to have goals. The goals need to be short term, they need to be defined under medium term, and they need to be defined under long term goals. And it is, how do you make your goals? They have to align with your values, your family. What do you want to do? What do you want to do for your family? What do you want to give back? Do you want to travel? Some of these things can be there as your goals. And estimate the amounts required and the timelines. When do you want to? So you want to, your goal is your kids' education. How many years later will that education happen? Or you want to travel. You have some money stashed for that goal. Or you want to retire after 10 years, after 15 years. Those are some of the goals which you need to define with a timeline. And once you have those goals in place, these goals keep you motivated. Goals serve as a powerful motivator, keeping you engaged and committed to your financial journey. If you, some of you would have read the book Alice in Wonderland, and it says that, I think the bunny there says that, where do you want to go? Says depends on, the fact is that where you want to go depends on where will on, or rather the other way around. If you don't know where you want to go, then anybody can take you where they want, right? I mean, if I don't know where I want to go, then if somebody tells me come with me here, I'll go there. If somebody tells me come with me somewhere else, I'll go there, right? So it's extremely important for all of us to know where we want to go, because then that gives us a direction. You start aligning your decisions, your financial decisions, with your goal, and it becomes a powerful motivator for you to keep yourself committed towards your financial journey. Some of the common financial goals which people have is build passive income, maximize their idle money. They want to plan for retirement. They want to plan for education of their children. They may want to get married or their kids' marriage, traveling. Some of these things are some of the common financial goals which we see when we talk to various people. The next point is putting a plan in place. Once you have your goals, the next thing you need to do is, now, okay, these are my goals. These are my short-term goals. These are my medium-term goals. These are my long-term goals. How do I reach it, right? So you have to have a plan in place. Just like, think about it as Google Maps. Once you've decided your destination, you know where you are. You have your bearings. Okay, I am in Dubai. I want to go to Abu Dhabi. So you have your bearings of where you are currently. Okay, I'm at this point. I want to go here. Then you put it on Google Maps. Google Maps gives you a road or a path, and then you follow it and you reach the final destination. So putting a plan in place is the roadmap that you create for yourself to reach that destination or the goal that you have set for yourself, right? And so let me take you through your financial success journey. We all began with saying that we all want financial freedom, right? What does financial freedom and financial success look like? And you may want to take a picture of this financial success journey. It's a pyramid which starts from the bottom. Once we've all agreed to the fact that we want to be financially free, does anybody want to tell me what does financially free mean? What does being financially free really mean? Anyone in the chat, what does it mean? When I say I'm financially free, what does it mean?
It's quite a complicated question, I suppose, isn't it? You really have to think about it. Like, I think financial freedom would be knowing that you have a buffer. Like you say, up to 2 years, but 2 years is a lot. But I think for me, possibly a buffer of about 6 months makes me feel comfortable.
Sure. So
anybody else? Would anyone like to comment?
It can also be like you're free from your debts, like you don't have any debts to pay.
Yes, absolutely. Any other thoughts?
Okay.
So financial freedom is what Catherine you said, and what Hitesh, that person, whoever, whatever your name is. I'm sorry, that Hitesh. Okay, so yes, what you have said too, that you don't have debts and much more. So financial freedom, basically, if I can give you a simple answer to financial freedom, is when you do not have to think of where your money will come from. You have enough money that is there available for you to take care of your lifestyle, of your expenses, of what you need to do in your life, and you don't have to worry about it. Now, isn't that going to be a wonderful space to be in, where you don't have to worry where your money is going to come from? To pay off your debts, to pay off your lifestyle expenses, to enjoy your holiday. If you have enough and more to take care of all the needs and wants that you want in your life. That is financial freedom. And to reach that golden top of this pyramid, you need to go through steps. The first step is awareness, belief, and motivation. Awareness about that I want to reach there. For a lot of us, we don't even have that awareness that we can actually reach there, where we don't have to continuously earn for the rest of our lives. Our money will work for us. We'll have enough money for us to take care of all our needs and wants, and we don't have to consciously work for our money. We can continue to work for our money, but not with a thing that, oh my God, if I stop working, where will my next meal come from, or where will my debts get paid from, or where will my goals get completed? That is what awareness means, that you start getting aware of where you want to reach. Then a belief in yourself that I can reach there. It is possible for me to reach there. It's not something which is, oh, that can happen to someone else. It's not something which can happen to me. For a lot of us, we think that, oh, that's just not possible. Does any of you think that it's not possible only for you to actually reach financial freedom? Does any of you think that way? That, oh, that's not for me. I don't think it's possible.
Justice is saying you work for yourself, which I suppose if you can make your passion your source of income, then you won't work. Who's
Yeah.
it? There was one of the famous, was it Richard Branson, who said that if you find your passion, you'll never work a day in your life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because, which is fair. So one thing is to pursue your passion, and you continue to do that, but you're doing it for passion, not for money. So you can be financially free and you have no money. I mean, think about Bill Gates, think about Richard Branson. They're all working still, but do they need money? They really don't, right? They have enough and more. So they're doing it for their passion and for probably giving it back to the society, or for whatever reasons, for keeping themselves busy, but not because they need to take care of their families. And if they stop working, they're going to not have money. So the belief that you can reach that level of wealth in your life, where you don't need to work actively for getting money. And then the motivation to get up every single day and have the discipline, have the commitment, have the drive, have the belief, and continue to move on that path one step at a time. And that is the first step to your success financial freedom journey. And if you don't have the belief, you will not be motivated to make it happen. You will again fall back, and again, I mean, then there is no way that you can reach it, because you have kind of at the very beginning given up on it. Once you've done that and you've started believing in it, you start making your income exceed your expenses. And what does income exceeding expenses mean? It's your saving, right? So you consciously now start saving money. Like I said, to reach financial freedom, you need to start saving. The only way to reach financial freedom and to build wealth is to save. So you consciously now get your income to start exceeding your expenses. And then we talk about the next part of the pyramid, which I already covered. Precious things protected. What is the most precious to you? Come on, in the chat, if you can tell me what is the most precious to all of you. Your health?
Yeah.
What else?
Anybody else? You can call out if you wish. You can just say it, unmute yourself and say.
Family.
Family. Yep. Thank you, Hitesh.
Right? Absolutely. So your health, your family, your life. Those are the three things which are most precious to you. So how do you protect it? Like we just talked, take insurances. When you take insurances, a health insurance, a critical illness insurance, a term cover, all these are towards protecting your precious things, right? So now you feel protected. Yes, I have protected my family, also creating a will. And we'll talk about that when we go. So once you protected your precious things, then you start eliminating your debts. So you might have taken a lot of debts for your home, for your car, for your whatever the mortgages all are. Over a period of time, you start eliminating your debt. Your investments start growing. Start putting money actively into investments, which start giving you money. And over a period of time, you have enough money stashed so that you feel financially free. And let's go to the financial planning pyramid now. So once you've understood what you want to reach this. To reach this, how do you plan your finances? And this is again a very, 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 very important chart which can help you understand how should you go about planning your finances. So the first thing is called defensive planning, where you defend yourself. That means you protect yourself in terms of having individual bank accounts, creating an emergency fund, and having a will in place. How many of you have a will in place? How many of you have a will in place? How many of you think wills are meant for people who are old and about to die? It's not for us. Or when we are about to die, just before we are going to die, we're going to create a will. How many of you think that way?
I actually had a will made at home in Ireland this year when I was home visiting, but I found that to register it here in the UAE, it's a little bit complicated and it's very expensive.
Yeah. So that's true. So the first thing is that wills needn't be registered, but it's good to have wills registered. Even if you make a will, that's good enough. But yes, to register it makes more sense. But first of all, Catherine, I'm glad that you at least have a will. So now when you go to Ireland, get yourself registered, your will registered there. Otherwise, you can go. So I don't know about Ireland, but because like in India, we can get it notarized by here itself. So we can go to the consulate and we can get it notarized there. So I have two wills, one will for the UAE assets and one will for the Indian assets. And both of those are registered. So the UAE will is registered under the UAE laws here, and the Indian will is registered under the Indian law. And both of them are notarized. And why am I saying that it's extremely important to have a will in the first place? Any thought? Any thought?
So Anjali was saying she thinks that way when you were saying about, is it for people who are old and about to die?
Yeah. A lot of us think that way. But remember that a will is a very, very important thing because it tells you, for minor kids, it gives you guardianship. So you can define the guardianship of your kids in a will. During COVID, there were so many people who lost kids who lost their parents. Now, if you do not have a will in place, then who is going to take care of your kids? God forbid something happens. Who is going to take care of your kids? Your wills define the guardianship. In fact, I actually know a case where the maternal and the paternal parents fought for the custody of the grandchildren because the parents were no longer there. But if a will was in place, then they could have actually written it ahead of time that who's going to have custody, who are the assets going to go to. And then, you don't fight over the assets. Everybody gets what they want. And you can define that if, God forbid, something's happened to you, that these are my assets and this is going to go to such and such person. And I actually know during COVID, there were so many people who just passed away and their families had no clue where the assets were, what assets were there or not, where they were. And it was so complicated because imagine the man of the house or the woman of the house has earned all her life and saved money and created assets for their dependents, and the dependents have no idea where the assets are because there is Nowhere it's written. There is no will in place, and without a will, transferring assets to somebody, to your dependents, becomes extremely complicated. So a will is a part of defensive planning. Once you've got a will in place and you have your emergency fund, you have your individual bank accounts, we get into the next phase of our planning, which, like I've told you, is offensive planning. If something happens to you, what will you do? So that's where your life insurance, your income protection, and your critical illness care comes. Once you've taken care of that, we go to the aggressive planning stage, where you start thinking of your life goals. I want to save for education, for retirement, for marriage, for whatever the important goals or events are going to be there in your life. So you start aggressively planning for them. And then the next stage is progressive planning. Planned for what my important goals were, my needs were in the future. Now, can I also plan for my wants? I want to travel. I want to have a second mansion. I want to create this wealth, whatever your investments. I want to create passive income. I want to get financially free. So you start creating money and you start saving money for those things. And at the end of it, you can even leave a legacy for your children and your grandchildren. And that's the way a financial plan is made. When you go to a financial advisor or a planner, he or she is going to ask you these questions and start building your, they will first take care of your emergency fund, then they will take care of your insurances, then they will ask you what your goals are, start saving for that. And if there is money left after that, they're going to see that this is the amount of money which you need till your life, for your life, and after your life, how much of legacy can you leave? That is the way financial planning is done. Any questions? Anyone till now? So let's continue. The next part of financial planning is creating a budget. Budgeting is telling your money where to go rather than wondering later where it went. How many of you create budgets? Anyone, do you already make a budget for your own family income and expenses? Anyone? Okay.
No.
Okay.
I don't think many of us do.
Okay. So another very, very effective tool to plan and manage your money is to do budgeting. Budgeting is a future estimation of your income and your expenses. It helps you plan and strategize for the future. That means it helps you think what you're going to, how your money is going to come, from where is it going to come, when is it going to come, and what are you going to use it for. Now, there are two types of expenses. There are necessary expenses and discretionary expenses, and then there are fixed expenses and variable expenses. One thing which I always tell everyone in my tribe is underestimate your income and overestimate your expenses. Why do I say that? The reason to say that is because if you underestimate your expenses, your income may not be enough for that. Say, oh, but I'm going to spend only 1,000 dirhams, but you actually land up spending 1,500 dirhams, right? So your budget will go haywire. So it's extremely important when you do your budgeting, try and overestimate your expenses and underestimate your income. And then there is a 50-30-20 rule, which means 50 towards your needs, 30 towards your wants, and 20 towards your savings. If you can allocate out of every 100 dirhams that you earn, 50 towards your wants, 50 towards your needs, 30 towards your wants, and 20 towards your saving, then you should be in a good space for most people. And budgeting, like I said, is one of the most effective tools of financial management. This is a little bit of an example, and I can share it after this session. I'll share it with Catherine, or I can do it even now if you want. This is a way a budget sheet can be created, where on top you put your income, wherever your income comes from. Then you do a mandatory saving of 10% or 20%. And then the money that you have left is this much. And then you have expenses, which can be divided into fixed expenses. Fixed expenses are expenses which are the same month on month or quarter on quarter or whatever. They don't change, right? So your house rent, suppose you have to pay it every 2 months. Then let's assume it's 12,000, 12,000, 12,000. You have your SIPs, you have your EMIs, you have your tuition fees, whatever money that you have to spend. you can put that, and then you divide it into other variable expenses. Variable expenses have to be estimated because they're not fixed. They have to be estimated, and then here you can put your utilities. So sometimes utilities can be fixed, but sometimes you have to even estimate utilities or grocery expenses, and then your discretionary expenses could be eating out, shopping, and all of that. And then you subtract your income from your expenses to know whether you have a deficit or a surplus. And if you have a deficit in some year, what you if there's a deficit in 1 month, any thoughts? What would you do if there's a deficit in 1 month? What are the thoughts that you have if your income is less than your expenses in a particular month? Any thoughts?
Very quiet.
Okay, so two things can happen. Either you can reduce your expenses, right? Or you start saving earlier. So if you know that 3 months later, I have a travel that has to be planned, and I need to spend 10,000 dirhams for that travel. And I know that my monthly expenses are so much that I will not be able to spend in that third month enough money for the 10,000 dirham travel. So what if I start saving 3,000, 3,000, 3,000, or 3,500, 3,500, 3,500 for all these 3 months, so that when I have to travel, I have enough money there to take care of my expenses, right? One way to say, oh, I can't spend 10,000, I can only spend 3,000. But can you travel in 3,000? Probably not. So then what do you do? The other way is to take out money from your emergency fund, but that is not advisable. You don't want to take out money from your emergency fund to be able to travel and do all of that, right? Because money has to be kept for your other goals. So then how do you do it? By planning in advance and creating a budget and seeing that you have money stashed earlier, and create a fund kind of getting created so that when you need to actually spend that money, you have money available for it. Any questions? I can share. Does anybody want this sheet? If anybody wants this sheet, I can share it right away. Let me in fact do that. Put it in the chat. Give me a second.
Yeah, Rania is saying please, yes. And Andrea, they would like to see the sheet. That would be good.
So, yes. So what I will do is, I am going to send you a link here. Okay. And what you have to do is copy it onto a separate file, and then you can use it. Okay, so this is the Google Sheet. Copy this link, and then you can save it, and then you can use this.
And what I will do is add it to the description in the YouTube.
Right.
When I post on YouTube.
Right. That'll be perfect. Right. So let's continue. Is it all going well till now? Is it making sense, whatever we're talking till now? Yes, no, maybe. Are we all sleepy or are we okay? Thank you. Thank you,
Rania,
thank you,
Andrea, Anjali, yes, resounding yes. Wonderful.
Superb. So now that you've created a budget, we go to the next part of our tips for creating for your financial planning, which is the longest. Okay, this is where I'm going to spend a lot of time. Create your wealth portfolio, and Catherine, we will be extending it by another 15 minutes. I hope that's fine.
15. We can't. We'll have to end at about 5 past. So we've got maybe 7 minutes or so.
Oh my God. So we may have to, I don't know how we're going to go because there's still a lot covered left. So create your wealth portfolio. Let's go. So one of the biggest secrets of becoming wealthy is that if your income continue to be as much as your expenses, then you will never be wealthy. The only way to become wealthy is to increase your savings, to increase your investments, and to reduce your expenses. The next thing to understand to become wealthy, what we need is that most middle class people would, as their income increases, would want to increase their expenses. But for us to become wealthy, as our income goes up, like I said, it has to go up exponentially. That means we must try and increase our income exponentially, and we must try and cap our expenses and not increase it by too much. And this difference between income and expenses is actually your wealth, right? And the more you can, the more income you can create and the lesser your expenses are, the more you can become wealthy. So you remember, all of you, that your investments help you build your wealth, and so it's extremely important that you have your goals, which should be able to help you build your wealth. Somebody had said, save, have less Starbucks coffee, and this is exactly what I have put in here. So if you have one coffee of dirham 25, and if you can save it for 30 days, in 30 days you save 750 dirhams in a month, which if you invest at 10% every month, which will actually become 1.5 million dirhams in 30 years. And the same thing happens if you invest your money at 8% every month. If you start investing money, in 30 years, your money will grow by 4 times. And if you invest for 20 years, it will grow by 2.5 times. And if you invest for 10 years, your money will grow by 1.6 times. So that's the way your money can actually grow if you invest your money and stop having Starbucks coffee every day. Yeah. And yes, the power of compounding. Albert Einstein said that compounding is the 8th wonder of the world. And so it is extremely important to invest your money so that you can, over a period of time, become a millionaire. And if I can call this the 15-5-3 rule, that if you invest every month 1,000 dirhams and at a rate of about 12%, then it will take you 15 years to get to your first 500,000. In the next 5 years, you'll get another 500,000. So you'll become a millionaire in 20 years by investing just 1,000 dirhams. And if you double it, it'll become half the time. And in the next 3 years, again, you will add 500,000 to become. So can you see that the first 15, to make it the first 500,000, it took you 15 years. The next 500,000, it took you only 5 years. And then the next 500,000, it took you only 3 years. And after 32 years, you will earn 500,000 every year. And after 38 years, you will earn 1 million every year by just putting, and that is what is the beauty of compounding. And think about Warren Buffett and all these people who've been investing their money since they were kids. Think about it. They've invested their money for 50 years, 60 years, 70 years. So they imagine they actually earn millions of dirhams just passively without working, by making their money work for them, right? So this is what I mean when you have financial freedom. If you consistently save your money, you can actually build your wealth. And of course, very important thing is the inflation impact. UAE's current inflation is 4 to 5%, which means that if your lifestyle expenses is 10,000 dirhams today, after 1 year, it'll become 10,450. After 10 years, this 10,000 will be 128,000 dirhams. And after 38 years, it'll be 637,000 dirhams at a 4.5%. That means to maintain the same lifestyle of 10,000 today, you will have to have 637,000 dirhams 30 years later for you to be able to have the same lifestyle expenses. Right? And very quickly, I think we can escape this, but yes, different people have different risk appetites, and our investment decisions are based on a lot of factors. And we must understand that risk and return go hand in hand. The higher the risk, the higher the chances of you losing your money, and the higher the risk, the higher the chances of you even making the money. And that's why it's extremely important to start understanding that we must assess our risk and know what our risk tolerance is. It is extremely important to diversify your portfolio and research before and not gamble your money. Don't speculate. Please be mindful. It's your money. You've saved it. And so invest it wisely, right? We go to the next part. The next part is pay off your high interest loans. If you have very high interest loans, anything above 10%, try and prepay them. And it is a very good idea to prepay your loans, high interest loans at the earliest. And if you have credit card loans, try and please pay them off very, very early, because credit cards attract 30 to 50% rates of interest, which is extremely high. And the last part of today's topic and tips is manage your mindset, because our mindset is our biggest asset, and what we say to ourselves makes a difference to how we behave. And so we have a lot of self-sabotaging mindsets like anxiety, fear, negative self-talks, victim mindset, fixed mindset, scarcity mindset. And we need to flip it and make it into a growth mindset, an attitude of gratitude, abundance, curiosity, positive, enthusiastic, energetic, and all of these kind of things. Our relationship with money needs to be positive. We need to feel secure. We need to stop being anxious and avoiding money and project confidence around money into the universe, right? We need to give generously. We need to receive graciously. And we need to vibrate with positive energies. And a positive relationship with money helps you to manifest and attract abundance in your life. How does that feel? If very quickly to let you know about Moolah for Women, we at Moolah for Women, I do make it simple. If you're a partner in your financial freedom journey, we have a Wealthy Me program, which helps you learn everything about finances. These are some of the topics that we cover in the Wealthy Me program. And it's like a full 180-degree approach method where we help you define your financial goals. We give you knowledge, and then we help you make your financial blueprint and help you start investing your money towards your life goals so that you can reach financial freedom. And that you can book a free strategy call with me. If I can just share the link, one sec. That's the last thing that I will do right now, is share the link for the free strategy call. Just one sec.
Yeah, and I'll add that also to the YouTube. And we've just finished bang on time, 4:05. Thank you so much, Meeta.
No, not at all. So one last thing, I am putting it here. That's my link for the strategy call.
Wonderful. I'll put that onto the YouTube as well.
And yes, it's from me. Thank you, all of you people. One sec, let me stop presenting.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your time. And it really makes us think. I think so many of us fail to really budget or plan. As you know, we've been very lucky at Inclusion to have Meeta as our budgeting coach, our financial coach for the last number of weeks. And you've made us look at things in a new way and really question things that we should have been questioning that we weren't. So thank you so much. And for all that you're doing to empower women, especially women, for financial literacy, because it's hugely impactful and hugely necessary and needed. As I mentioned, everyone, the recording will be found on our YouTube channel. I'll get that up there in the coming days. And thank you all for coming. And we hope to invite you next month. And we look forward to seeing you next month. Thank you so much, Meeta.
Thank you, all of you. Thank you for being here today. And thank you for being such a wonderful audience. Thank you, Catherine, for this opportunity. And yes, reach out to me if anybody wants to get more financially literate. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.